If you ask 10 ETS2 or ATS players the same question, you'll probably get 10 different answers. And while there's certain things everyone can agree on, even in 2025, there's a lot of popular myths that continue to spark debate within the community. From simple claims like a stronger engine always uses more fuel, all the way to things left open for interpretation. Some players swear these things make a real difference, others believe they don't change anything at all. So today, we're gonna take 10 most popular ETS2 and ATS myths and put them to the test. We'll finally find out if there's any truth to these tales, or just our imagination going a bit crazy. Let's start with the one that even if you don't believe it to be true, the logic behind it actually makes sense. The idea is that in-game, some trucks take less damage than others. You'll often hear things like Mercedes is safer than a Renault, or you should buy a Volvo, it lasts longer. So the question's simple. When the environment is the same, do different truck brands actually take different damage percentage when having a crash? Or do we just imagine it because we confuse this game with real-life standards? To test this, we kept everything identical, same speed, same road, same type of impact. The only thing that we changed was the truck. I took one of the safest trucks in real life and compared it to the Iveco S-Way. If this myth has any truth to it, we should definitely see a difference. Both trucks were driven into the same barrier at exactly 50 km per hour on multiple takes. And then when we check the damage, the result is identical in all the tests I've done. Despite the differences in size, shape and brand, the actual damage is calculated in the same way. So this one's a myth. Different types of trucks don't secretly take more damage, at least not in vanilla ETS2 or ATS. For our next myth, we are moving from crashes to something that can prevent them, the braking distance in different weather conditions. There seems to be a debate between players claiming that rain does not affect how fast you can get your truck to stop, regardless if the asphalt is dry like the desert or fully soaked. In my opinion, if it looks slippery, it sounds slippery, then it surely must change something, right? Well, let's find out. We will keep the test simple. Same truck, same tires, and the same speed of 80 km per hour. First, on a dry road. I think that's a pretty good stop. Now let's make it rain and try again. Now we gotta keep in mind that I'm using pedals, so while I'm trying my best to apply the same pressure, there will always be a small margin or room for error. Still, in every attempt I made, the wet asphalt was always making it harder for us to brake. So it's not just visuals. In my experience, this myth is not a myth, but a fact. The weather conditions will absolutely affect how fast you can get your truck to stop. For our third myth, we're gonna go to ATS, but we need the sun to set before we can test this, because a lot of players seem to believe that the headlight color changes how far you can actually see. White or LED are supposed to illuminate further, while the classic halogens are set to fade out sooner. It makes sense in real life, but does ATS simulate that? To find out, we're going to set a simple test. Same truck, same spot, same object in the distance. First with a bright white LED, and then with a warm yellow halogen light. Now, I don't know what I expected, but to me it looks like, besides the fact that it doesn't change the distance, it looks pretty much the same. Now, maybe I'm doing something wrong, maybe the test is flawed. Let me know down in the comments if you think I messed up. For this next myth, we're going back to ETS2 and we're gonna focus on something every player has done 100 times over: parking. A lot of people believe that if you line your trailer perfectly, straight, clean, right in the middle, you earn more XP than if you drop it off crooked or rushed. Let's test that. In attempt 1, I had a clean, careful, almost textbook parking job. In the second attempt, it was the complete opposite, still choosing skilled parking, but this time going fast, sloppy, and definitely not straight. Now let's check the XP screen. As you can see, the reward is identical. ETS2 and ATS don't care how perfect your trailer looks. If the box turns green, you get full XP, every single time. This myth is busted. Next, let's talk about something that every player uses on long drives: cruise control. There's a very common belief that cruise control saves fuel compared to holding the throttle manually. And it makes sense, the truck keeps a perfect speed, and in theory that should mean better fuel economy. So let's test it. Now, while I can't show you exactly what I did because this video will turn into an hour-long one, I can tell you what the results were. On a flat road, the results were almost identical, but things change the moment we hit a hill. Cruise control accelerates hard to keep the exact target speed, and that actually burns more fuel from what I've seen. So this myth isn't really true or false. Cruise control can save fuel on flat terrain, but on hills, it can actually do the opposite. So it's plausible, but with some limitations. For this myth, we're looking at something that almost every one of us would believe. And that's the reason why when our truck is damaged, we're rushing to the dealership to get it fixed. It's about the fact that the more damaged your truck is, the slower it accelerates. So let's test it. First, here's our baseline, 0% damage, smooth acceleration, quick gear changes, nothing unusual. Even if we're trying to raise the damage to around 30 to 40%, I'm not seeing any real differences. At 90 to 100% damage, we can actually see a difference. At some point, the engine refuses to shift up, so your top speed is limited. So I'm not sure what to say about this, but truth is, engine damage in ETS2 and ATS doesn't gradually reduce the torque like a real truck. You keep the full performance until the engine reaches a critical state. This might be a gearbox limitation, but the myth is kinda plausible. You do accelerate slower, just for different reasons. We're back in ATS for this one, and I was actually very curious to see what the results were. A lot of players believe that if you blind the AI with your high beams, they react in some way, like they slow down or they move aside, or at least show some kind of response. So I tested it. First, I followed the car at night. I flashed the high beams, I kept it on, no real reaction. Even when I tried to overtake with the high beams on, nothing. They didn't move aside, no reaction whatsoever. And I was about to call it, but I did notice something really interesting. Cars coming from the opposite direction actually flashed me back. Not because they tried to avoid me, but in a way it felt surprisingly real, like a little friendly nod to let you know, hey, your high beams are on. And I'll be honest, when I discovered this, it actually made me smile a bit. It kinda means that they never had to warn me, because I never keep them on when I shouldn't. So the myth is technically busted. The high beams don't actually change the AI behavior, in ways that players would expect at least, but the AI does acknowledge you in a small human way. And that's even better than the original myth. Now, for our final myth, I'm testing something that I didn't fully comprehend before, so I had to do some research. This myth claims that lowering or lifting your truck axle might actually change how tight you can turn. So I tested this with two different chassis, mid-lift and tag lift. Mid-lift axles are designed primarily for weight distribution, so when lifted they reduce the rolling distance. Based on real life, the tag lift or rear lift axles should actually improve your turning radius when lifted, because the lower rear axle pushes the rear end wider during the tight turns, which is called a scrub effect. So after my research, I can show you the mid-lift results. The axle was down, the axle was up, the result is really no difference at all. The turning radius stays exactly the same because the steer axle is still the pivot point. But then I tried the tag lift configuration. The axle down, the truck needs a wider circle. Axle up, suddenly it turns much tighter. And here's the interesting part, this is actually realistic. On a tag lift setup, the rear axle pushes the truck outward during the tight turns. If you lift the axle, you eliminate the scrub effect. So this is a very fortunate case where the game lines up perfectly with real life. And that wraps up our testing for the day. Some myths were busted, some turned out to be real. And this video was pretty fun to put together. And if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe. I'm doing my best to create as much content as possible, and simply liking, commenting or sharing the video helps me more than you think. And as always, until the next time, stay safe on the road and keep on trucking. Cheers!